Good morning, class. I hope we're all well. This is Form 2 History. This is Lesson 10, Week 5. We'll be looking at why the League of Nations failed to preserve peace. The first reason is that the League of Nations was closely linked with the Versailles Treaty, so it seemed to be more beneficial to victorious powers such as France and Britain, and not so much to the smaller states, and one of which was Italy, which was disappointed. And the second reason why the League of Nations failed to preserve peace is that the League of Nations was rejected in March 1920 by USA, and this was a rejection of both the Versailles Treaty and the League of Nations, and this was a huge blow to the League of Nations. So the League was deprived of a powerful member, as well as the fact that US's presence would have been of great psychological and financial benefit. The third reason why the League of Nations failed to preserve peace is that other important powers were not involved. For example, we find that Germany only joined the League in 1926, as well as USSR only joined the League in 1934 when Germany left. And this was about a year before the League was disbanded. So the League of Nations lacked support of three of the world's most important powers at that time. And the fourth reason why the League of Nations failed to preserve peace is that sanctions would only work if the Americans applied them, but we'll find that America never joined the League, so they couldn't apply the sanctions. And the fifth reason that we'll look at is the fact that the Conference of Ambassadors in Paris was an embarrassment, and also in Geneva Protocol, where we find that they judged in favor of Mussolini. So, the sixth reason that the League of Nations failed to preserve peace is that the Germans were still bitter towards the Versailles Treaty, and when they faced economic problems in 1929, they blamed the treaty as it was behind the formation of the League. And the seventh reason why the League of Nations failed is that there were weaknesses in the covenant. For example, it had no military of its own. It actually relied on member states to supply it with troops. The eighth reason why the League of Nations failed to preserve peace is that it was more of a Britain and France affair, and we'll find that the absence of USA and USSR and the hostility of Italy made it more of a Britain and France affair. The ninth reason why the League of Nations failed to preserve peace is the fact that the world economic crisis began in 1929. We'll find that there was an increase in unemployment as well as a falling in the living standards of people. So countries had been weakened by the First World War, and there were no resources to fill the gap left by USA. And then the 10th reason why the League of Nations failed to preserve peace is due to the fact that Japan invaded Manchuria in 1931. And the next reason why the League of Nations failed to preserve peace is due to the fact that the World Disarmament Conference of 1932 to 1933 was a failure. We'll find that Hitler used this to withdraw Germany from the conference and later from the League of Nations. This was his perfect excuse to do so. And then we'll see that Germany took advantage of France's request, where France had actually requested to postpone disarmament for another 8 years, and yet Germany had been made to disarm. And the 12th reason why the League of Nations failed to preserve peace is there was also the Italian invasion of Abyssinia in October 1935, which dealt the League of Nations quite a serious blow. So the League condemned Italy and imposed economic sanctions with exemption of exports of oil, coal and steel to Italy. So Italy was half-hearted about the sanctions, and they went ahead to complete the conquest of Abyssinia. And we'll see that Mussolini actually flouted. We'll find that Mussolini actually flouted the League's orders, and Britain and France wanted to keep Italy as an ally against the real danger, which for them was Germany. So Mussolini was angry with the sanctions, and this made him to draw closer to Hitler. And then we also see that small states lost faith in the League, and Hitler was also encouraged to break the Versailles Treaty. And after 1935, the League of Nations was never taken seriously again. So right below that is an image, if you can just take time to study it.